Happiness. It's such a cliche, isn't it? It's such a weird thing. How do you define happiness?
So I make it a point to talk about happiness not so much as an emotion, but more so as structures that you build in your life where the byproduct is happiness. And that actually takes a lot of work to build those structures and then also to maintain them. Because anything in life worth having is usually going to require some level of sacrifice to get it, and then also a level of sacrifice to maintain it.
Hi guys, welcome back to Neff Inspiration, a show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. Today I've got Leighton Campbell with me. And Leighton has had the opportunity and the insights to dive deep into happiness. Now, happiness is something that escapes so many of us, yet it is the subconscious driver of so much of our behavior. We are yearning for joy and we hate pain. And unfortunately, in so many of our cases and of our situations, there is not much joy to be found, at least the way it would appear. But in reality, that is a lie that we tell us. And today we're going to take a deep dive into happiness and the steps that we can take to nurture happiness, to nurture joy in our life. And there are many ways how we can do that. Leighton, welcome to my show.
Stefan, thank you for having me on. Really looking forward to our conversation today.
Happiness. It's such a cliche, isn't it? It's such a weird thing. How do you define happiness?
So I make it a point to talk about happiness not so much as an emotion, but more so as structures that you build in your life where the byproduct is happiness. And that actually takes a lot of work to build those structures and then also to maintain them. Because anything in life worth having is usually going to require some level of sacrifice to get it, and then also a level of sacrifice to maintain it.
Ooh, well put. And I love it that you say structures that you have to create, because indeed, taking action is the key to us achieving whatever we want to achieve. Those goals that are often so nebulous because they're not even goals yet, they're still dreams. Oh, I want to be slim. I want to be good looking. I want to be rich. Well, that is all abstract, weird shit. You need to be
Yeah.
far more clear in your mind when you say, I want to be rich. Well, what does that mean? Do you be more precise? And I think that's the same with happiness, isn't it? I want to be
Uh,
happy.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I completely agree. And I don't know that I really gave you a definition the last time, so I'll kind of give you a more concrete
Okay.
definition, at least as to what I'm referring to. It is a sense of inner peace and satisfaction at the deepest level of yourself. Because
Mhm.
we can kind of either lie to ourselves or pretend that we are feeling something. But at the same time, we also know when we believe something and we know something at our core. And that's kind of that is what I'm talking about. It's a
Mhm.
happiness at that level. And that is kind of independent of maybe what actually is going on in your day-to-day life.
Mhm.
Having
Mhm.
that deep sense of inner peace and joy,
Mhm.
like kind of what's going on to some degree. Of course, if all hell breaks loose and it breaks loose for an extended period of time, that can weigh on anyone.
Yeah.
But the minor ups and downs of life, if you have a deep sense of um, satisfaction, inner peace, those things roll right off your back.
Exactly. But having said that, it is so difficult to come to it. When I look around the men and women I know, they are all torn into pieces by external and internal chaos, external experiences. Life is hard due to economic downturn, due to injuries, due to problems within the family, due to divorce. And then they're telling me, you're talking about happiness and joy? Are you nuts?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, some of the things you mentioned, I've personally experienced.
Mm,
I've been divorced. I've had medical issues. I've had familial issues. I mean, my list goes on. And I actually, for the sake of giving my credentials in the book, I list just real quickly some bullet points of some of the more crazy things that I've had to deal with. Tragedies is what I refer to them as. And the reason why I do that is I want people to understand that while your situation may be different from mine, I have been through things. You have been through things. And for most of us, there is a way to get beyond that and find that happiness that I'm referring to.
beautiful, beautiful. When they say time heals all the wounds, certainly there is something to that, but it's a very slow healer. So if we were to actually take action steps and create smart goals that are focusing on increasing the chance of happiness or the
Yeah,
degree of happiness and joy in our life, I think we are on a far better path than just wait and see what happens to us. So therefore, I actually loved a systematic approach to happiness.
sure.
Prior to me researching you, I had not thought about happiness in a way, in a simplified recipe slash tick box way to actually look at it. So if we talk about happiness as this beautiful state of deep serenity, finding ourselves, really being at peace in our heart, that is beautiful, but that is abstract. I know that you are thinking in areas, in domains of happiness. And maybe we
Sure.
should talk about that because there's very good and hard research out there that actually looks at the impacts that various domains, various focuses within our life can have on happiness.
For sure. There are many. So there's actually 7 questions that are part of the process of getting your score. And each of those questions gives you an idea of the thing that I feel is very crucial to that particular aspect of your happiness.
Mm,
So um, the very first one that we talk about is, are your basic human needs being met?
mm,
Because if you are struggling to survive,
mm,
it may be very difficult to be thinking or considering about your happiness. You have more pressing concerns there.
mm,
If you're fortunate to be in a situation where your basic human needs are being met, then you're kind of moving up the pyramid, the Maslow's pyramid, for example,
mm,
and now you can start to looking at some of your um, deeper needs. And so then the next question we talk about is the groups that you belong to. Do you belong to any groups? So that is now when you're talking about categories and structures that you can build in your life that can produce happiness. That would be, I think, one of the first structures is
mm,
what groups do you belong to that are meaningful to you?
mm,
I'm in many groups. Some of them I don't care that I'm in. I didn't really even sign up for them, but I'm just happen to be in those groups. Some groups bring me tremendous amount of joy, and I put a lot of effort into my how I show up in those groups. So for the groups that are important to you, first of all, do you have that in your life?
mm,
That's worth talking
mm,
about.
mm. And many
Um,
of us, due to reasons whatsoever, have become loners, if I want to use another cliche here. We have become more focused on us due to circumstances. Often enough, due to negative emotions such as shame and guilt. We don't want to put ourselves out there. When you have lost your job and when you're going through a divorce, you don't feel your best. And the last thing you want do is meet new people who are saying, "Oh, hello, I am so and so, and what are you doing?" Yeah, well, I've
Yeah.
just lost my job. Great. Okay, that's something to be proud of, you know? So
Yeah.
it's hard. There will be many people who are falling short of that, yet connection we know is such an important part of being a human and finding joy, finding purpose, all those things.
Yeah, I think it's important what you say because you are 100% correct. When you're at your lowest or when you have gone through a very difficult time, that's probably the hardest time to go out and find a group and connect with them.
Mm,
The time to do that is when everything is good. Like your life is going pretty well.
mm,
That is the time to go out and start building relationships,
mm, mm.
um, investing in those relationships
Yeah.
so that because life happens to all of us, regardless of who you are, where you are, what your circumstances, life always brings some level of challenge and difficulties and opportunities. But having those people that you already have deep relationships with, that when you do lose your job, you do go through a divorce or
Mm,
some other major issue, you have a community of people that are there to support you.
mm,
And that is a key thing. And
mm,
in the book, I talk about preppers. I don't know if in New
mm.
Zealand this is something that's on your radar. Okay. For
It's
those
on
who,
my radar very much. So
oh, is it really? Okay.
oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's just, it is a very important thing because in New Zealand, after all, we are living on Earth crust that is about this thick. Okay, so we are renowned for, well, we are the equivalent of your Yellowstone. We are the
Oh,
equivalent of Iceland. Okay, we have
oh,
got lots of dormant volcanoes, and from now and then, these volcanoes say, "Hello, I'm still here." Or we've got earthquakes, and so yes, it makes a lot of sense to be prepared. But back to
exactly.
you from a prepper point of view, what was the point you were trying to make when I interrupted you?
So, okay, I live in Florida. We
Yeah.
have our share of natural disasters, primarily hurricanes,
Mm,
that we could be in a stretch of time where, we have no police presence for a
mm,
couple weeks,
right.
possibly.
Right.
The stores are closed, the shelves are empty. It's like, so
Mm,
for people in America that I'm aware of, you have people who are preparing for the apocalypse. And they have really invested a lot of money and time and to be prepared for like the worst possible events.
mm,
On the other end of the spectrum, you have people who have done nothing.
mm,
Um, it's not even something that maybe they don't even know that they should do anything, or if they know, they just determine they're just not. And that's the kind of the spectrum. Because I live in Florida, I'm somewhere in the middle, closer to it's on the forefront of my mind. But in terms of like the apocalypse, I mean, the zombies may never come, the nukes may never rain down, we may never have a solar flare that sends us back into the Stone Age. But if you live long enough, you are going to experience tragedies and you should be prepared for them, kind of like
mm.
what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
So there are tools that you can have. We've talked about a couple of them already. First of all, being aware that
Mm,
if you are a happy person, now is the time to get connected. You're going to need those people. They're going to
mm,
need you.
mm, mm.
It's a two-way street.
That's very, very well at what you're making, at a point you're making.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is very important. And I would say that my journey, my happiness journey fell along these lines. Because when a lot of times when I talk to someone, oh, I've written a book on happiness and so on. Oh, well, I'm a happy person, so I don't need your book. The first book I came along that was regarding happiness, what it did is it allowed me to realize a gift that I was given that I didn't know. I thought I'm a naturally happy person. I thought everyone was naturally happy. And after reading the book, I discovered that I actually have a gift. And for
Mm,
some people really have to work hard to be happy. For me, it's generally comes natural. But what the book also told me is that you need to protect that happiness. And
Mm,
that's something that I started to internalize. It's like, okay, I feel good now. Everything is great now. I want to make sure that when life really starts throwing things at me, I'm going to be able to maintain this or as close as possible and then
mm,
ultimately get back to it.
mm.
And that's exactly what happened. I A few years later, I went into one of the darkest moments of my life, and I was more prepared for it than I would have been had I not come across that information.
That's intriguing to hear. And that's especially important for us when we have started an emotional journey or a journey towards emotional intelligence. And when you begin to realize how maybe situations and experiences at an early childhood level or later on have primed you to have certain core beliefs. For example, there are many of us out there who seek external validation, who seek the approval of others because that was how we appeared, how we somehow lodged a belief that we get love only when we achieve something in our lives. And that is a hard, hard, hard belief to carry with you because you will never be satisfied. You will always seek more. I have collected a lot of alphabets, soups behind my name, and I would do exam after course, and I wouldn't stop to celebrate to win. I would just keep going and I would not find happiness in an achievement. There always needed to be more, there needed to be the next. So when you're driven by that, when you can't actually see or find happiness with the achievements that you have, you're always chasing elusive dreams. The moment you step back and actually realize, hang on, there are other ways how we can achieve happiness with meaningful conversations, with connections to people. Suddenly you've got an alternative to achieve that happiness. And that is powerful. You're no longer relying on that external validation, but you're actually suddenly finding joy through a completely different route. And that is a very empowering insight that is waiting for some of us.
Yeah, I completely agree. The one of the benefits of getting connected with other people is that I think of the people in my life. I go to them and we have conversations at times, and it is completely no judgment.
Mm,
I can say almost whatever I want, and they will hear me out,
mm,
and they will sometimes all they do is hear me out. Sometimes they'll chime in, but I'm not in a situation where, like in other areas of my life, business, other relationships, where I know that I have to perform. They are expecting something from me,
mm,
and I need to deliver it because of the nature of our relationship. But in some of the more powerful groups and communities, and specifically individual connections within those groups, that is where the acceptance, the love
mm,
really comes uh, to the forefront. And I know that I am that person for other people. They can come to me, they can
mm,
tell me anything. I will hear them out. And if there's anything that I can do, or if they're looking for advice, happy to offer
mm,
that, as well too.
mm,
Or just hear them out. Just talk.
mm. I love that. I love that. There's so much in connection. And I guess why I'm reflecting so much on it is that yeah, that is probably one of the areas that I have not invested a lot of time into. And it's hard because ultimately there are other factors too. You might have chosen coping mechanisms in the past that suited you then to actually deal with the pain of the moment, let's say alcohol or drugs, etc. Many addictions that we nowadays have. Let's be real, about 1 in 4 people are chemically addicted to something. So if we now suddenly change our lives, then many of these so-called friends fall by the wayside because they don't
Sure.
like it that you have stopped drinking, etc. So sometimes people, by doing the right thing, end up in a lonely position and in a lonely state. So there are many
Yeah,
factors that can contribute to that, I guess, is I'm trying to make. And again, there should be no judgment. There should be just a moment where you draw a line in the sand where you stand still and actually think, okay, what are the meaningful connections in my life? What are the groups I belong to? And again, no judgment. If you come up
yeah,
with zero, well, that's good because you've drawn a
yeah.
line in the sand. That is your baseline. So now you can actually start working on that domain. And I love that.
Exactly. There's a statistic, I wish I knew the exact age,
Mm.
but in the US, I want to say it's like at by the time a man is 35, he has all the friends he's going to have. He doesn't usually make new friends. And that's like
Yeah,
one of the selling points, if you would call it that, for jujitsu. So I do jujitsu.
yeah,
I've been doing it for about 6 years, and I started when I was 40. I'm 46 now, and I have developed some of the closest friends that I have were made after my 40th birthday.
nice.
Um, so that's like an example. And
Yeah,
I'll also say I've made pretty much every mistake you can make in life. And one of the mistakes that I had in my first marriage, I'm divorced, I'm remarried now, is that I thought that I didn't really need I never consciously said this out loud, but it was my default programming. I don't need friends. I have my wife and I have my children, and then I have my brothers and sisters, like my biological brothers and sisters. And that was enough. And it's not enough. It's not, or at least it wasn't enough for me. Um, I needed something that would pull me away from my family for a time that I can be doing something productive. I'm not hurting anyone. I'm not doing anything wrong.
yeah.
I'm building myself actually. And then I can now return back to my wife and my business
Mm.
and my children, refreshed, renewed, in a better man. And those are some of the characteristics or the things that I've gotten out of that. And for everyone, it is different, but I would encourage people to maybe push that comfort zone a bit
Yeah.
and find your tribe.
And I love it that without meaning to, we have focused on men because I think as men, we are more likely to fall into that trap, being the provider, focusing on certain aspects of our life far more than meaningful conversations, because that means often enough that we have to be vulnerable and open ourselves up. And that's not necessarily a position that many men want to find themselves in. It takes big, big balls to be open about your situation and to be vulnerable, to be to show the real you, not the mask that you carefully have created. And yeah,
Sure.
guilty as charged. And I think that is something by just us two actually modeling it and maybe raising the awareness. I think that is so important.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. We sometimes put on the mask that everything is okay. We have this way that we go through the world, and a lot of it is defensive. At least for me, is I'm really trying to protect my ego. I mean, I'm
Mm.
aware of some of the stuff, but I am ultimately uh, trying to do trying to do that. Um, what has kind of allowed me to like let my guard down, I think I can speak to myself, and I think this would apply to a lot of men. Um, Women may also be able to find some value in this, but what allows me to connect to another man is us having gone through something
Mm,
difficult together.
mm,
If we have, I'll use a jujitsu example, gone and literally bled, literally sweat together, and progress through the ranks
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
And he was there for me. I was there for him. We helped each other, iron sharpening iron. Like a person like that, also, understanding or coming to realize that they have good intentions. Like a person like that, I can let my guard down and say something vulnerable to.
Yeah.
If I just meet a guy, I don't know who you are, I don't know kind of what your deal is, the chances of me opening up to you are absolutely zero. I'm not
Yeah.
going to do it.
Yeah. I like that. I like that analogy very, very much. And no, I love it. The power of connection. Wow. Yeah, as I said, guilty as charged. That is certainly a domain that I have fallen short. And it was only in the preparation of our interview that I did your happiness score and a test that is on your website that allowed me to hold a mirror in front of my face. And that was good. So here we are. Okay, we have defined happiness. We
Sure.
have talked about the Maslow's basic human needs. And once that they are filled, or then we can actually, or fulfilled, then we can focus on the next level, which is connection. And
Sure.
we've talked lots about that. So thank you so much for raising our awareness of that importance. What are the
Right.
other areas in our life that
Sure.
strongly contribute to happiness?
So the next question in the quiz is the groups that you belong to that are meaningful, how would you rate the value that you bring to those groups?
Mm,
Because I don't feel it's enough to just belong to a group. If you just show up and you do whatever activity is there and then you leave and then that's all you do, I would argue that you are in a group, but you're not connected to that group. One of the greatest ways to get connected is to provide value to the group.
mm,
And this is where intentionality comes into play
mm,
because every group has needs. And one of the greatest needs that any group has is they need new people. So, first of all, the fact that you're there, which is a big hurdle for a lot of people, it's like, I don't necessarily want to step out of my comfort zone because I don't know if I'm going to be accepted. But the people in that
yeah.
group, they have been praying for new people. Okay, so we're not going to talk, we know groups are important, but once you get in the group, it's like, okay, there's a
Mm,
period of like settling in and so on. But after you kind of figure out what the roles are, what the norms are, what the customs are, how things operate,
mm,
now you need to think of, well, how can I bring value to this group?
mm,
Maybe the way I bring value has nothing to do with that particular group, especially in the beginning of my jujitsu. And I'm in other groups as well too. It's just helpful for an example. I wasn't particularly good at jujitsu. I'm not all that great right now. I'm better, but so what I bring to my academy isn't my awesome jujitsu. It's some of the things that I bring is that I connect the members of the group to the things that they need in life. Because one of the older guys in the group, I
mm,
established in my business and my community and so on. A lot of them are just really getting their lives started, and they need things. They need people that they can trust. And I know many people that they can trust. So they come to me. I've helped them get jobs. I've
mm,
helped them find contractors to do different things in their
mm,
life, help them
mm,
get insurance. I mean, all types of things. So I'm kind of the guy, like one
mm.
of the things I bring to my group is I'm the guy, you need something, you call Leighton, and he will find someone to help you. And that's intentional. And I have to give credit to Sebastian Younger, who wrote the book Tribe, and I reference that in my book. And I have been in groups of various kinds throughout my life, but I just kind of fell into them. But after reading that book, I decided I was going to become more intentional about it. And now that I'm in the different groups that I'm in, I'm
Mm,
very aware of how I show up there. Like,
mm,
what am I doing for other members and so on. So the third variable or third silo is the value that you're bringing to the group that you belong to.
mm. And that is reflected in many religions where being of service to others is held at a very high level of regard. When you look at AA, the 12th step is being of service, going
Oh,
out there. It is a very powerful principle that has been recognized in many, many aspects of our lives. And for some people, that is very natural. And for some people, it's even too natural. So there are so many people who have become, due to adverse childhoods, they've become people pleasers. The only thing they focus on is being of service to others because that's how they get their validation. And so we need to be aware that this can be a double-edged sword. On the one hand, many of us have not realized the power of being of service to others, of being a volunteer, being whatever, just being there for others and helping them. Others of us, the people like doctors, nurses, paramedics, those people on the front lines there, are often driven by that and maybe are overdoing it and maybe are suffering then from compassion fatigue, because that is one of the biggest highlights of burnout in frontline staff. So
mm,
again, it's good to look at both sides of the coin,
that's yeah,
but and the reason I do that is each and every one of us is different. And
exactly.
some of you will say, huh, I never thought of it like that. And that might be exactly the right thought. That might be the seed that has been planted. Or alternatively, one of the reasons that you're not happy is that this was the only thing that you were doing. You defined yourself as the knight in shining armor, as the person who is there for everyone, but not for yourself. So again, it's so important to balance that. And that's really what happiness is all about. Drawing that line in the sand and analyzing what are the contributors to the fact that you are not happy. And I guess most people are probably falling into that category. Those people who are saying, well, I'm so happy, are probably unlikely to be listening to this YouTube show or to this podcast. So therefore, good. Let's balance it out. So, but yeah,
Sure.
being of service, I agree. That is where I get a lot of joy from. And
Yes.
to help people, that is my curse, but it is also a privilege and a pleasure for me. So it
Mm,
is a double-edged sword, but I am aware of it, and I to see the gratitude in someone else's eyes for something that you have done makes my heart smile, if that is possible.
yeah. No, for sure, for sure. And
Mm,
it's interesting because this kind of dovetails into the next variable, which is gratitude.
mm,
And I think a lot of people, when they hear gratitude, they think of them expressing gratitude to other people or to circumstances, or it's something like outside of themselves. And that has a very huge role in gratitude. But there has been studies that have done recently about the effects of receiving gratitude and how that
uh,
benefits you. Like, so gratitude, we're talking about, you know, there being two sides of the coin here. It's not only in your expression of gratitude, but also in your receiving of gratitude. This is kind of related. You'll see the analogy here. As a younger man, an adult but younger man, I was the type of guy who I didn't want anybody doing anything for me. So if we went out to eat, I would not allow you to pay for me. I don't buy
uh,
me a present. I don't need anything.
yeah,
I am good. So I was at a church during this time of my life, and they were talking about something about if you go through the world that way, you are robbing people of the opportunity to bless you.
beautiful,
And I was like, oh wow. Wow,
beautiful.
that hit me kind of hard.
Mm,
So my the way that I was going through the world at the time, not letting people do anything for me,
yeah,
thinking I was helping them, I was actually I was definitely insulting people unknowingly. I was definitely hurting people's feelings unknowingly.
yeah.
And after hearing that, I was like, you know what? I really got to step out of my comfort zone because it is out of my comfort zone to allow someone to pay for me. I'm like, okay. But now awareness, again, it's a very big thing. I'm aware of it. I'm aware of some of the things I need to work on in my life. So allowing someone to bless me, to do something nice for me, and just saying thank you and really
Yep.
um, appreciating
Yep.
that helps fill that gratitude section of happiness. So I do express it, but I also relish in opportunities when people give me genuine gratitude
Mm,
to receive it, process it, soak it in. Think of how awesome that the fact that I was able to touch them in that way and they've
mm,
expressed it to me. That's
mm.
that's a beautiful thing.
And it is, I 100% agree. Oh, please, it is. Uh, I am guilty as charged as you
Huh.
were.
We're very
I exactly. We're very, very, very intriguingly coming out of the same. We're carved out of the same wood here. Uh, but I'm not alone here. You could say,
no,
"Ah, it is bloody men. They don't know to how to receive a gift." It's not just men. How many women are out there who can't take a compliment?
true.
They are, "Oh, your hair looks good." What do you mean? Do I not normally look good? And things are getting turned around and weird. And I was married to such a woman. It was incredibly hard for her to actually accept a compliment, a gift, and that speaks volumes. So again, when we actually when we break happiness down into those domains, those questions, it allows us to look at the reasons why we maybe fall short there. What is actually going on? Why do I not allow myself to receive a compliment, to receive a gift, someone helping me? Where is that coming from? And I think the moment you allow yourself this question to percolate and and listen to the answers, not run away from the answers, then this is growth waiting for you. These are emotional intelligence insights that are worth everything in your life.
For sure, for sure. Even after hearing that initial idea, which definitely changed my life, but I still struggled with it.
Mm,
It was way out of my comfort zone. I maybe did it a little bit more, but
mm,
then the next thing, which goes right to what you just said, I did another course. This was like a secular course, but it had great information. They said if you're the type of person that won't allow people to do something for you, it's because you feel you're not worth it.
mm.
And that was a gut punch
Wasn't it?
because, yeah, because I have always told myself that I have a high level of self-confidence, self-esteem. This is not something I struggle with. And if you looked at my life, you would say, yeah, no, that no one would describe me as a person who had self-image issues or self-consciousness issues. But when I thought about it, I was like, that is the reason for this. So I was able to double down even further. And not so much that, I do my share of fighting for the check and paying for it before the bill comes. I do that also. But when I know someone wants to do something special for me and it's really important to them, I allow them to do it.
Yeah,
And I also tell myself, I am worth it.
beautiful.
I am a person that is worth someone spending money on,
Yeah,
going out of their way to doing something nice for me. I am worthy of that. Not because I'm the greatest person on earth. I'm not, and I've made many mistakes, but I do try. I try my best to show up in a great way for people. I do make incredible sacrifices to help people, and if someone wants to return that favor, I'm not going to take that joy from them.
beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And that's humility, the insights there that come with that to actually allow yourself to be yourself. You don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to prove to others that you're the survivor, that you're the strong man. And that is, again, that's a very, very powerful domain. Wow.
Yeah.
Man, you make me reflect a lot. I did already quite a bit of that when I sort of researched you, but now that we talk a bit more in depth about the various subsections, it is
Yeah. It's pretty
very,
deep.
oh, hell yes. You wouldn't expect it from the topic of happiness. You would think, let's talk about jokes and let's talk about, I don't know, something. No, there's
Yeah.
so much more. But that is, if we break it down into such domains, we can take very meaningful action steps in each of these domains because we are living with intention. We are not just bobbing around on the surface of the ocean like a cork and being driven by winds or currents. No, we are actually suddenly having a rudder and a sail, and we can choose where we want to go. And that is power. That's pure empowerment. That's what we are talking about here.
100%.
Mm.
As we move on,
Mm.
the next one is something that I actually struggle with. So the others, was okay, one, working on, but this one is something I really struggle with. So the question that's asked is, when a meaningful situation does not go as expected, negative impact on your emotions last a short time, moderate time, or long time. And I wish that I was the type of guy who something happens and I immediately just blow it off and keep moving. And for some things in my life, I can do that. But for bigger things, not the biggest things, but for bigger things, I need to make sense of it logically in my mind before I can move on. And sometimes that takes longer than it should. And I know it and I'm working on it. I wrote the book, I did the research, but I don't, my score isn't anywhere near 100. I'm working on a lot of things, and this is definitely the biggest one for me.
Uh, oh, please. It's hard. And again, we need to look back. Why are we like that? Because there has been betrayal in the past. There have been core beliefs laid down at a very early age that are running subconsciously and that have been running, and that these core beliefs, they try to protect you. They did so, they did the job when you were younger, but they're probably no longer serving you as much. And these core beliefs are still there. And we need to address them because if you don't, then you will live a life that is less fulfilled, that is less
Yeah,
happy. No two ways around it. And for many of us, we don't ask that question ever. And there's probably a quite a nice many ways we could take this interview or take this point from here. But if you look at PTSD as a really extreme form where experiences from the past continuously come back to haunt you, continuously cause an emotional reaction, despite the fact that they happened 40 years ago or 30 years ago or something like that. So that is, everyone recognizes that is not right. But what is actually a time frame? Because if something really shitty has happened to you 3 weeks ago and you're no longer bothered, well, hang on. That is wrong too. Your mind, your soul needs time to make sense of that, needs time to work through that. What is that time? I don't think anyone really knows. But I think a few weeks up to 3 months, if you feel really shitty about a major traumatic event, I think that's absolutely normal. That is there, isn't it? What I mean, which kind of time frames do you put on that? What is
so
normal as a normal way of coping and trying to find meaning of something that has occurred to you versus, okay, now this is really getting into ridiculous areas.
sure. So a lot of the questions are subjective, and people are going to determine short time, moderate time, long time differently.
Hmm.
And I leave it up to the respondent to gauge these things.
Hmm.
So um, a short time can be a couple minutes. It
Hmm.
could also be a week.
Hmm.
Like if you think for you, based off of the way you're wired and how you process information and how you walk through things, if it takes you a couple days, a week to to fully get over something,
mm,
and in comparison, that thing would have taken you years,
nice.
that person may say, man, I got over that in a short period of time.
Yeah.
And it's relative. So
Mm,
I don't put a time frame on it because
mm,
everyone's going to have different experiences. As you mentioned,
mm,
everyone's different.
mm,
Everyone's going to put different time
mm,
frames based
mm,
off of their past, the things they've been through,
mm,
just the way their mind works,
mm,
um, and so on. So, but people have an intuitive sense of, man, I kind of got over that pretty quickly. Like I'm
mm,
surprised that doesn't bother me anymore.
mm,
Or um, man, I really dwelled on that way longer
mm,
than I should have, and it
mm,
really affected me longer than I should have.
mm,
Or yeah, that was about right. I dealt with it, got over it.
mm.
People have an intuitive sense for that, and that's kind of what I'm asking, as opposed to
Nice.
a hard and fast. Here is the time frames that you have to
Mm.
fit in.
Lovely answer. I love the answer. I think in reality, if you look at it, if you wanted to now think of maybe bigger events, major lifetime changes, I think to the first 3 months after such a thing to actually ruminate and think again and again and again about things, I think that is absolutely normal. So you don't have necessarily PTSD if, despite the fact that some big trauma has occurred to you, what you're doing or what your whole being is doing is trying to make sense of it. And uh, uh, I think if you were to try to put somewhere a line in the sand, if you say if something has occurred 18 months or longer ago and it still gives you emotional responses, gives you change of your physical state, then probably that is something that you might wish to address and might wish to think about and work on, because that's really no longer serving you. This is something where maybe your life could be so different if you learn more acceptance, if you learn more ways how to deal with that. So this is for bigger things, but you're talking about also the email that really upset you, that someone shouted in your face at work because they lost it, because they were at the at breaking point. And we often don't see the situation they are in. We just only see the emotional response that comes out of us, the anger, the rejection, all the negative emotions that we conjure up, that might in fact actually, it might not be about us at all. This guy just lost it. And I think that is
Sure.
that is the other thing that you're talking about. So
Yeah, for the major life altering events are not with this and in the opportunities that I've had to interview people live, I will put it into context. In the
mm,
book, I put it into context.
mm,
The major life altering events are not really what I'm referring to
good.
here.
That's what I
Um,
thought, yeah.
yeah, just the general. Now, you can
Mm,
have some major things, uh, that fall into this category,
yeah.
or some important things, I should say, that fall into this category. But for the very large things, that's different. You
Mm,
have to work through that stuff, and
mm,
and some of those things take years. I was
mm,
talking to someone recently. I want to say that the average time that it takes for someone to get over a divorce and be ready to be out in the world. It's going to be different for everybody,
mm,
but generally it's 3 to 4 years
mm,
is what I've heard
mm,
from a therapist.
mm,
So yeah, I mean that would be a major thing that can occur in someone's
mm.
life. And should you get over that in 5 minutes, I
Yeah, I doubt that.
I doubt that, especially if you love that person at some point and
Well,
and you
exactly.
have history together.
Exactly.
5 minutes, no, 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 you're gonna need more time.
I love it. But again, it is that we can learn lessons from how we cope with the little things and then extrapolate some of these lessons towards our current attitude to the bigger things that have occurred previously in our lives. And we can learn where are the similarities, and we can ask ourselves important questions. Is it time to move on, for example? Have you grieved enough, quotation mark, if there is such a thing? If have you actually lost yourself in that part of your personality? And is it not time to come back now towards the other parts of happiness? What we have discussed, the connection, the seeking out meaningful conversations, seeking out service, gratitude, all those things, because that can get all lost. And suddenly you're surprised that you're no longer happy in your life because you have lost sight of those key ingredients.
Yeah.
You have cooked something that basically consists of two ingredients with no spices, and you wonder why the meal doesn't taste so nice. Uh, the best ingredients, sorry, it won't. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think and from the book I referenced earlier that really impacted me on happiness, it's called Happiness is a Serious Problem. And one of the themes in that book is we have a moral obligation to be happy. So when you talk about these bigger events now this is not part of the equation, and but we're down a rabbit hole, but that's good. And I do touch on some of this though. But when those bigger events occur, you need to grieve if that is appropriate for, you know, according to you and whatever you're going through. You have to know and believe that you have to get back to happiness.
Mm,
And
mm,
as hard as it is it for me to say, I mean, I've been through very challenging things in my life, but there are many challenging things that I've been spared from. And I would tell myself, at least I hope I would tell myself, that I have to get back to being happy. I need to work through this. I need to put the work in to get back to that point. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm going to do the work. And at some point, I am going to be on the other side of this. And one of the reference points that I have for that in the book is that it's very unusual for someone to go through an absolutely unique situation where no one alive or who has ever lived has been through it. Very uncommon. I can't, and I tried, I can't think of a situation. There are so many people who have been through
yeah,
the thing that you may be struggling with,
yeah,
and they found a way over time to get back um, to happiness.
yeah.
And in my own life, um, while I was going through some of these very challenging things, it was extremely difficult. But we talked about time healing all wounds, and it does if you work at it. Typically, the pattern in my life is something goes wrong or something is a big challenge.
Mm,
I take time to go through it. I don't go through it sometimes the best way possible, but I do what I can. And then over time, I feel better, and then I'm able to laugh about it and joke about it.
beautiful.
And that's really a sign to me that I have just within myself, I have fully healed from this as much as possible. There's always a scar, but in terms of it not provoking like an emotional response
Yeah.
where now I'm negative, now I feel negative or I'm projecting negativity, I've gotten to that point when I'm able to make a joke or someone can make a joke and we can laugh about that thing that
Mm,
was that sent me to the lowest points ever not so long ago. That's a sign for me.
absolutely. I love that. And this is a journey that is unique for each and every one of us because it has a lot to do with self-love, with acceptance, with core beliefs. So if you look at the amount of ingredients that are going into each and every dish that is called a human, we all taste different and we all have got different times for the dish to be ready. And it is what it is. But
Yeah.
it is, I love it actually that you say that it is your duty because I actually believe so too. Because we are not isolated beings. We are beings bruised, battered, but we live in communities. Other people often depend upon us, our children, maybe our parents, who hate to see you responding in certain ways and remaining in a victim role uh, in response to whatever has occurred to you. It is very, very hard. So we have got a duty to show up for ourselves. And I think 80% of success is showing up.
I agree with that.
And when you actually show up for yourself, you will very quickly realize how powerful that simple step is because you've already taken action by showing up. So now that you've done the first step, it is actually much easier to take the second step of whatever that is. And there are so many steps we can take. Each step will be unique to your current needs, but the steps are all there. They look huge and you don't think you could possibly overcome something. But when you actually take tiny steps, then this is, it's inevitable for you to stay stagnant. It's inevitable for you not to become happy if you break happiness down into systematic goals and then take time every day, 15 minutes, to work on one of these goals, or maybe two of these goals, these subdomains, and actually work towards that. Take active steps. I would say that within a month, you would have made huge progress with that. After 3 months, you probably don't recognize yourself. Your state in which you spend the majority of your time in, your emotional state, will be very, very different once you have invested every day a little bit, but in a consistent fashion.
I agree. I think a lot of people believe that happiness is just something that is going to happen to them.
Hmm,
That's an expectation. I think it's subconscious. I think no people don't really teach children how to be happy, how to navigate
hmm,
the world in
hmm,
some of the ways that we're talking about here. Some traditions and faiths and other things do, but a lot of people think, oh, my happiness is something that's going to happen to me
correct,
because of outside circumstances.
correct.
And it's actually the opposite to a large degree.
Hmm,
Um, the things that you do are going to produce happiness,
hmm,
or they can also produce other things that may not be as good or maybe even negative. But if you are working in the things that you just said of looking at your areas that you can potentially improve upon, taking time to think about, okay, I'm going to start doing this.
hmm,
I'm going to spend a little time focusing on these things. This
hmm,
is work, but it's your life. It's
hmm,
you owe it to yourself. You owe it to the people around you to
hmm,
get the most you can, and it's worth the work.
hmm. It also shows me, talking to you today proves to me that there is hope. It proves to me that some of the negative voices in my head are blatant liars. And more importantly, it has shown me concrete steps I can take that I maybe was afraid of taking. Fear avoidance is something that runs many of us as a attachment style or as a coping mechanism. And that is my biggest negative coping mechanism or attachment style. But by putting yourself out there, making yourself uncomfortable to actually choose a new group and start again, I think that will be a huge step for me. And that will be something that I will ponder this weekend to actually think, okay, how can I translate that now into my current situation? How can I bring some of those new found insights into my life? And again, that is where it becomes very personal. That is where you need to sit down and actually maybe do some journaling and actually maybe do the test, break it down into those domains and say, okay, where am I falling short? Or which question has really rattled me? And
Exactly.
how you respond to each of these questions. There were a few questions there which I thought, ooh, where I actually got, yeah, even now I got a goosebump here.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it just shows there's work to be done, but it's a privilege that you can do this work. It's a privilege that we have highlighted that to you because now you have found one of the things where you can get massive improvements, the low-hanging fruit. The sheer fact that your soul, your vibrations have completely changed the moment you saw that question. Well, that speaks volumes, does it not? Wow.
For, for sure.
Did, did
Yeah.
you perceive these questions in a similar way when you came across them, when you started pondering them?
Well, okay. So the genesis of this whole project started with a conversation with my children where we're sitting down and we have all types of interesting conversations. And I was like, guys, let's see if we can come up with an equation for happiness. So I'm moderating the conversation. They're throwing out ideas. I'm throwing out ideas. We're putting something together. And at the end of it, I'm like, wow, there may be something here. Now, it was the very first version and it was very rudimentary, but I'm part of a business networking group. That's another very important group that I belong to.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was the educational coordinator of the group. And so I had a week to like work on it more, do some more reading, some more research, and so on. And I presented a more polished version of it. It's highly polished now, but at that time, just a little bit more polished than rudimentary. Um, I got a response like I had never gotten before from my peers. These are, well, not even my peers. Some of them are like my brothers and sisters. We're very, very close. And a lot of them, I have been in that position, the educational coordinator, probably 7 times in the last 13 years. So that's 50 presentations a year for 7 years and never getting a response of any, more than a high five as I go back to my seat
Yeah.
and then having almost 40 people call me, text me, email me about how impactful this was to me. So to answer your question, that is when I knew. I felt it as I was going through. I was like, man, these are really powerful questions.
Yeah.
But when I got the confirmation from my group that they also believed that these were very, and these people, they have no reason to lie to me. They could have told me that about the other hundreds of presentations that I did. But this one has been the only one before and since. They still haven't come up to me and said I said anything amazing, but that one really stuck out.
Hmm.
That's when I knew there was something there. And now I have an obligation. I have to I have to get the word out. And and here I am.
Oh,
I
Leighton,
can
you're an amazing man. Now I lost track. Did we actually cover all the questions? Because we went
Um,
into some beautiful
yeah, yeah,
side streets there, and
sure, sure,
they are each and every one was so important because we are
sure,
talking about some fundamental we are talking about questions of fundamental importance, and
for sure.
therefore not a single word we said was not critical to some parts of me, to some times within my life, which I mean, we all change. We all have good times, bad times, and different teachers appear in our lives depending upon where we are at. When we are ready, the teacher appears. So here we are.
Yeah,
Have we
yeah,
missed any domain that we have
yeah.
not talked about?
There are two. They're the two deepest ones. So we're
Oh,
probably not gonna.
okay. I thought we had gone rather deep so far. Here you go.
Yeah,
Bring it
it
on,
goes
brother. Bring it
deeper.
on.
So the sixth question, and there's seven, is do you believe your life has a purpose?
Mm.
Yeah. And clearly there's a lot of different beliefs on that. And then for those that, I guess, regardless of how you feel, there's a lot of things that go into that belief. But the last question is, if you do believe your life has a purpose, how would you rate your progress on achieving your purpose in life? And on an A plus to F scale, we use the American school system of A plus to F. And I know not everyone in the world uses it. So I further break it down to like to four categories: excellent, above average, average, below average, and unsatisfactory. And then there are three levels within each category. So even if you know nothing about American school system, you can still kind of put a metric on that.
Mm. It's interesting. The purpose.
Yeah.
Well, that's the meaning of life. Viktor Frankl,
Mm.
people who have gone through the worst situations on earth and trying to find a meaning, trying to find make sense of their being on this earth. And the purpose is so wonderful. Now, many of us don't realize that. I don't think many people have ever been asked that question. When
Mm.
you ask that question to others in a one-on-one setting, what responses do you get?
So far, I've done hundreds of these, but I do think my sample size, or not the size, but the population that I'm selecting from is probably not very representative because these are people who, like, for example, no one so far has told me that their basic human needs are not being met. While I
Ah,
know that there are people out there that I come across every day whose
exactly,
basic needs are not being met.
exactly.
Um, Also, no one yet has told me, and I have now my own prejudice has come out. I would approach because we did a lot of street interviews with people, and I and a lot of our interviews are on social media, so you can see some of these interviews. I would see someone and be like, I'm pretty sure this is going to be the person that's going to tell me that they don't believe their life has a purpose.
Uh-huh.
It's not right. It's not right for me to think that, but I'm being honest.
Yeah,
Um, just because, if someone is, for lack of a better word, um, you know, maybe alternative in their worldviews, and they maybe dress in a certain way that may show that they have alternative views in life. I have friends, like that, and some of my friends will say like they don't believe life has a purpose. But the point is, all the people I've talked to so far, none of them has said to me that they feel that their life doesn't have a purpose, which
interesting.
to me is encouraging because I personally believe that everyone's life has a purpose. Some people reject that.
Yeah,
That's fine, but I haven't had an opportunity yet
yeah,
to have that discussion with someone and
yeah,
kind of see why they feel that way.
yeah. That's interesting. That's a very interesting thing, and it's intriguing. That's a hard topic because
It is.
if we were to think about it, there are at any one time about 6% of the population who have got suicidal ideation, who feel so lacking of self-worth, of self-love, who are in very dark moments. And so are we missing those people? Are we talking about a selection bias here? Well, that may very well be the case. Are we talking about such hard topics that no one wants to admit that? Because admitting that you have no purpose would basically be conceding, would be giving up, and no one wants to be seen in such a weak position. Are
Possibly.
we talking people just talking bullshit and trying to somehow pull a wool over your eyes? Or is indeed when the cards are down and whatever thoughts had been ruminating in your head, when you're challenged, when you're saying, is there a purpose of life, that really a fire sparks within you, that this is one of the fundamental questions that brings out the survivor, that brings out the person who wants to make a difference? Is that the key question that we need to ask ourselves in moments of despair,
Hmm.
where we can maybe harness a power? that is waiting to be unleashed within us. Bloody hell, we're
Yeah,
going deep here, aren't we?
we are. Yeah. I would say that question more than any other question that I asked in my street interviews is where I saw the fire in people.
Isn't it?
They, most of them answered it with a very definitive, and I can tell because it's one of the last questions. And on some of the other questions, we're having like this exchange back and forth, and we're going deep at times. And they would say, "Yes, I believe," and they would open up and they'd make eye contact with me, they didn't really have to convince me of that.
Yeah,
It came out. Now, I guess the other side of it as well too could be, and I hope this is the case, is that maybe if someone is struggling and they think about that, then maybe that question can help reorganize the way that they've been thinking.
exactly.
And and if this project does that for any one person, I have been extremely successful.
Mm.
Uh, you know, so
There are very powerful questions there that you're asking. And as with all the questions that we're asking ourselves, our deepest inner being, and I'm always struggling to say soul, heart, whatever, because we all have got different pictures in our mind. And certain things sound for some people cliche, whilst others say, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So take it with whatever situation you are in. Whenever we ask certain questions bypass our ego or challenge our ego, and both things
mm,
are good. But if we ask the question in a right way, you're the human, the energy being, the soul comes up with answers that are sometimes so illuminating, so amazing. You when you sit still and ask yourself powerful questions, often how questions, how can you grow within that domain of connection? How can you find your tribe? How can I be more happy? Then your brain will come up with answers.
exactly.
Whilst if you ask, why am I so unhappy? Why is that all happening to me? Well, your brain will come up with the answers. It will give you 20 reasons why you're a piece of shit and not worthy of love and not worthy of on being on this earth. So it all depends upon how you ask that supercomputer between your ears the question. And I think your questions are very powerful in stimulating responses that are nurturing and that are maybe a little bit painful because they actually show the truth in your life. And I think that
Possibly.
is, yeah, it certainly was for me. But at the
Yeah.
same token, they opened up a door that I wasn't even aware was there, and
Yeah.
therefore to actually have a sneak peek into that realm of connection. Like right now, whilst I was interviewing you, my brain was already thinking, okay, how can I connect more? So my
Mm.
brain, whilst I was actually doing a job here with you, my brain was already working on that. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
business round was one thing, and then it said, "What about church?" And I said, "Nah, in my mind, nah, that's not really for me." Okay, fair enough. Then what about jujutsu? Ah, I've just injured myself. No, okay, maybe not. That was all going on as I was happening. So my brain was already stimulated by us talking about these questions, and that's powerful,
That's beautiful. That
isn't
is the
it?
power. That is the
Exactly.
power. So amazing.
Oh man. Leighton, you have done such a great job there. I'm so
Thank you.
pleased that you came into my life, that somehow we connected and had this most beautiful conversation about some of the deepest and most beautiful topics that affect us as humans. we've truly, truly broken happiness down into a system that allows us to take action in a very sensible, practical, goal-orientated way. And goal-orientated, oh, that could be seen negative. No, take it as as a recipe for
Exactly.
creating a beautiful dish. And, if you have no idea about cooking, you have to start somewhere. Okay,
Sure.
once you're a master chef, then okay, things come naturally. But most of us are not master chefs, are we? So we need to have a stepwise approach. And I am for certain grateful to you for having outlined meaningful steps that I can take in, well, I mean, right now, today, I will start and working along these steps because I want to be happy. That has been something that has been missing. Joy
Mm,
has been missing, happiness has been missing, laughter has been missing for quite some
mm,
time in my life now.
mm.
But now I've got a systematic approach how I can actually fill this void. And that is powerful. That has now moved me from victim to survivor, and now I'm the cusp to being a thriver, to thrive in my life again. And you have given me some of the tools to actually get to that. For that, I'm eternally grateful to you, Leighton.
Well, I really appreciate those words, that some of the kindest words that I've heard. But now I'd like to say to you, thank you, first of all, for giving me an opportunity to be on today and to get the word out. And I really appreciate your passion. When I talk to you and we discuss, I know we're having a genuine conversation. The passion that you have for wanting to help the people who listen to your podcast, it really comes through. Um, you know, thank you very much. And I just, want to let you know that.
Thank you, brother. Um,
Brother.
if people want to know more about you, if they want to find you, if they want to know more about the book, so when is your book being released, and where can they learn more about you and maybe take the test?
Sure. Okay, so the release date of the book is February 4th, 2025.
Mm,
Um, a good place to find more information about me, the book, and also take your completely free happiness quiz is our website, and
mm.
that is www.yourhappinesseq.com. So you can get your free score, pre-order the book if you'd like, other
Mm.
resources there. From a social media standpoint, if you kind of want to hear some of the street interviews we've done and some of the
Yeah,
other content,
yeah,
the very best place to see our best stuff, as soon as we come out with it, is on Instagram, and the handle is at your happiness EQ on
beautiful.
Instagram.
Your
There you
happiness
go.
EQ. Guys, look down there into the description of the YouTube video and of the podcast. Leighton's social media links are down there, and the information is just there. Normally ask, what have you got to lose? In this case, I ask, look at all those things that you can gain by checking out your happiness and by asking yourself these questions, because they certainly rattled my cage in all the right ways, in all the positive ways. It empowered me in a wonderful way. And as I said, the teacher will appear when the student is ready. Maybe now I'm ready to address happiness in a very meaningful, structured way in which it is very likely that I will succeed, that I will find happiness. And that's exciting. That is actually, I cannot, I cannot ever remember a time in my life when I had a framework such as yours giving me as much hope
Mm,
as as right now. So that is these are amazing times. Wow. We need to do follow-on interviews, man. We need to go
sure.
down the line and actually see because it's inevitable for you not to grow further. Remember
Yeah.
that moment when shortly after your children and you had this beautiful discussion. And by the way, who has discussions like that with his children? For crying out loud, who are you, man? Okay, you are my hero, honestly. It's certainly
Thanks.
something that I could have never had because, you know, for many, many reasons. A, I didn't have the emotional intelligence myself at that time. Even if I had, these questions would have raised very different things in my wife and me, and within a minute we would have been fighting, and the kids would have run away as quick as possible to get away from the table. So it just shows this is powerful. But when we do it, when we have these meaningful conversations, suddenly miracles happen. And you are living proof, brother. You're living proof. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, and
So,
all true. All true.
absolutely. So, again, thank you so much for being a guest on my show. Okay.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And you guys out there, look after yourself and live with passion, live with intention. Bye.